Kata efe una e poko e manatu ia uko usi ie. Ne uno fo ie funa makape kai meie, kai meie. Kata efe una o o amanaki manatu i mai si ana angani. Ne uno fo ie moturi aki koe utape kita i motami. Ne mapu asi i malau pea ke no asi e kumanatu. Kisi o tahua ne whakapapa u fotu e urua nalore mau. Te ikai te uanu pera uma. Mo ove te kina maisi o tahua. Koe iri e ni te ufoki au. He kua mahino mai o ota e ofa.
Ake hosino na ko e kumoto. Ko e whai angaia e te tau lewa whai mana ko. Na a te whakapapau me au sila I aki e mo oni. Kai aisi ano e te ki te ato ki pai me I he te si. whakatapui ke toe e kea. E kuo ke tuli mapua mo ke holi ke ta whakatete. Takaisi i matangini o ne tu ume lato o kakani. O ana ke toe hanu e koho fo ui pe kuo whai. Elito oe o wha kuo kaniseri e e kumanatu. Amana ki tonoa pe o pamo oni kuo lau i tau. Ka uni a e mate kuo no folilo i a te koe. Pai a hofu ulotona kau pukepe e tatarite. Anga te uipe o ikisi o hingoa oi e hani te upepe. Koe halawi mahi e mohono kakala te pakawale. Anua koe ia ka te usi i tare atupe. Anua koe ia ka te usi i tare atupe.
Salió cojo toca hoa de un lado co e cucoloa oi awe hoto fakapo así eterno muy ofaloto si uelie o emanadu kuono foia itu angalu olo vetitu hetau kagapa koe lo se koe hoku ofaanga mafoa ayata pe aneu a ui ui pe kisi o hingoa pe ino foa kau foki o mohe manadu maiki a koe fo i kukuvalu Out of all the nights I remember, of all of the love I recall, there are many who live in my memory. Sweetest of all. Sometimes I still think about you. Sometimes I wish that you'd gone. Sometimes I feel like you're lying here with me, 'cause it's still the sweetest of all. What's it? It's sweetest of all, babe. What's it? It's sweetest of all. 'Cause I wasn't your first love, I wasn't your last, I wasn't your sweetest of all. Your goodbye in your pocket, 'cause you ain't going
malo te ting mo to lo mo si me mai ke pai ngai va ke tar folau e a mi koni tar kai lo to fia ki mo to lo ki fe unu kola ai tonga ato ia o fala hi ki mo to lo
I still think
Kahako whatongi atu e ni bea me he kolo I kau angelo me Los Angeles, Hollywood, California. Bea koe taimi I California ni koe osi a mini te taha hiwa bea me he nima.
sometimes I feel like you're lying here with me 'cause it's still the sweet
Kata ke veo ko lele ai. Me katoa pe ke a pe mo pe tu o mo me a mai me ai.
the sweetest of all, babe. What's that sweetest of all?
Tau talo ro fia heni ai pure porisi meuri mele la tu taula.
So what's it,
Pa malo atu malo ai.
your first love?
Nga wela I mo toka nga I tau.
You last.
Le ti ho me mo e. Pai ngai pa ke tari fola.
Sweetest of all.
Kama la tueni kia soana tau tua a me kau ki tau tore a honi. E me fo kia linsi. O fa tika te koe.
You ain't going nowhere at all.
Lucia Louis Thompson so malo tika te koe malo e tau mao e a ho whakakoloa
Your
koe.
memory
A lere mea fo o kui heni mo ki tau tolu.
you with me.
Whakare atu ke te koe e Lucia Louis Thompson.
The sweetest of all.
A whemui nunia o ku ne kau mai mo ki tau tolu I hea honi whakamalo atu ke te koe a whemui. Malo e tau mao e whiawhi whakakoloa ko e ni. O whalahi atu ke te koe. Malo e whaifatongia mai. Ia miho mo wheitu. Ia whakamalo atu ki he whaifekau. Whina unga fo o. Ano lotua e tau paenga. Atu ai whalahi ke te koe whaifekau. Whakatawangi veo kuongo lele atu ai ngahi whasi ko e ni. Whakalelu lelu ai e whiawhi. Ke me whitu o ke mea mai mei ai. Oua pe tae lata.
Boy,
Ko ia whamalo atu katika mo tolu hono kotoa pe o kumo kau mai pe moau I he polo kalama ko eni ai fe unu koula ai tonga. A ki mua ke tau kamata o ku whakahoko atu ai ki mea ko eni. Ko re whakamore atu ka pau e whewhe ha whaifatongia I he ahoni. O ku ikai ke ufu uongo I peseti e te au. Na aku alu ane afi o huhu ko e huhu tu oua ia koe I he vaccine, ai a koe huhu whaka osia. Pea koe ne au mai ki ane uhu na uongo ia e whelanga ki e sino mo e langa ulu. Koe ia atu ai ai kore whakamore ka te kumotolu ka pau e whewhe ha whaifatongi atu he ahoni. Kou tomu a whakahoka tu pe ka motolu ke mou mea ai. Na whai pea ngari whakamata tua ha whaifatongi he ahoni. O kui kai ke ufu ongo I peseti e te au. Ka ne ongo ia he kai ke tuku e waka kai whai e kakau, ko pau pēr ke whai e whatongia o e whe unu koula ai tonga, ke whakahoko atu ki a te ki mautolu I he ahoni.
Ai
Kore ke u tala mo ka pui I he tala kakato o e whonua. Ia mai ngahi tala whakatapu ko toa pē. O wha takua atu pēa mei he pahenga o e wāke tari wholau. Pēa tā mua ke whakahoko atu a e whaiwhatongia a e wheunu koula a e tonga. I he houa ko e ni o au ki he taimi walu. Whakatapu ki he hautoka o e whonua. King tupo wono. Pē ke tahine kuini nanas pau. Whakatapu ki he prinsesi Pule, prinsesi Salote mawhire o Pilolevu Tuita. Whakatapu ki he ho eiki mo e kauminista o ene awhio. Te hea whakatapu ki hataki lotu mo hawhai whekau. Atua e whakatapu ki he fui lupe o loto palasi. Ia pehe ki he whare o tupou mo haa moho e ofo. Whakatawange ke taumaringi mai a ene keresi whakalangi. O tākai aki a ena āwhiwhio ai hautoka o e whonua. Ohi a koe uri whohe o ku whai. Ia tau ki whonua. Whakatawange ki he tamai he wani ke ne malu. Ke ne whai tāpua kina ke tuu loa. Me ke laui kuonga o au ki pā angangalu. Ai pūre ai whare o tupou moha mohe o who. O whātu ki ngai whawhonga o e kautau koula. Ka pehe ki si ngai whawhonga o ki mautolu o kumou i he mohenga o e mamahi. O whātu ki ate ki mautolu o kumou i he ngā o e anga. Ki mautolu o kumou whai whatongia mai me ngai wheitu o kehe kehe. Me ngai whonua kehe kehe. Whakatawangi peu tau inasi ta tau. I he ofa pea mo e keresi a e otua. I ha tapa pe o e kolo pe o kumou mea mai me ai. O au si mispo me e. O kou i he ni ke whai whatongia atu ma ki mautolu. I he polokalama ko ia ai wheunu koula ai tonga. Wheunu koula ai tonga. Whakamanatu mai ka te ki tau tolu a tau whatonga motua. Whakamanatu mai ka te ki tau tolu a e tolu i mata i koloa. O ku efi holo he tonga. Ai lotu. Ai whamiri. Pea moho tau tala tuku whakaholo. Whakatawange ke tau kei puke a fufula. Ai ngahi tala ko ia talu mei ono ah. Ke hoko koha maka whākinanga. I he ngahi whonua o ku tau whakaauhe ai. O lahi hono ngahi whakatauere. Lahi a hono Ngahi maki nito kune hanga fusi atu. Aho tau kakai. O whātu ka tingu mautolu. Pia whakatawangi pēki tau mao hapolo kalama lelei. He aho ni whakatawangi ki he laumari o e o tua. Kene kau mai I he polo kalama te tau whakahoko I he aho ni. Ia hoi ki moi ka inga o ku atu ai whakamālo ki te mo tōlu ko hia ko mo kau mai. Pea mo au I he polo kalama ko eni ai whi unu kou lai tonga. Pe hange ko iana whakahoko atu ane nei. Ka iai ha whai polo kalama e ngāri whi atu ki te mo tōlu. Hange ko iana whakahoko atu ane nei. O kui kai ke o fuongo I pesete te au. Ka he kai ke tōku ai waka kai whai ha kakau. Ko pau pe ke whai ai whatongia ke au atu ke te mo tōlu. Pea me ngahi tapa ko toa pe o ku mou me amai pea me iai. Ko e tau polo kalama ki he ahoni. Ko e o atu pe e tau ngahi whanongonongo. Pea pe he ki he tau ngahi ongo ongo. Ngahi ongo ongo whakawhia fia. Mo e ngahi ongo ongo o ku ikai ke whakawhia fia. Ngahi ongo ongo o ku whakalilifu. Pea mo ngahi ongo ongo o ku whakamamahi. Whakatawangi pe ki he otua kene whaitāpo e kina pa kene malu I ki tau tolu. Pea pe he ki te ngau tolu mo mo ngahi whamiri. O whalahi atu ki te ngau tolu hono kotoa pe. Mahalo mo mea I kotoa pe ko e tu uni ai CDC. Pe ko e waa ko ia o ku nau toka ngai. A ngahi mahaki o ku lava ke mafola I he kakai. Nau o si whakahoko mai ai whakaata o e mask. Ki e teki nau tolu o ku nau o si huhu vaccine. Pahange koe nau whakahoko atu ane nei. Nā ku lava atu o whakahoko ai huhu hono wā, ai a koe ne osi ia, I he vaccine. Pea o kia iai mahu inga ho eki mo ka inga o whakamanatu atu ke te mo tolu, ke mo o huhu, ke malui. Malui koe, malui honga hea whamiri, pea malui mo si kakai o ku mo whiohi. O kia iai ngahi talanoa o ku ave takai holo. Pea koe talanoa koe ni ko whakaamu pe ki he tokotaha ko ia na ne whaia e talanoa. Ke whakamaala ala mai ai mo oni mo to tonu o mea ko ia na ane tuku mai. Koe talanoa pe koe o ngongo na ne whakahoko mai. Ko hia koe o kuai e kakai toko lahi o ku ikai ke nau fie huhu vaccine. Makatu unga I hatala noa o ku mafola holo pe o ku sasala holo. O kuai e whonua e ua noa o ku ikai ke nau fie kau I he huhu vaccine. O ikai ke u lavei pe koe vaccine koe ni o ku whakaonga I ko ia I Amerikani. Ai Pfizer, pea moe Johnson & Johnson, pea moe Meturo. O kai ke u lawe I pe koe vaccine da tau, pe ko ha vaccine kehe ia. O ku makatu ungai ai I kai ke whio e kakai o huhu ko hia koe talanoa o pehe. Koe whonua e ua noa. Unau pull out I pea mehe huhu vaccine. Ngahi talanoa koe ni o ku tau ataina pea ki mo tolu ke mo o mai e ngahi tala noa. Kau toi mahu inga pe ke whakama ala ala, te ria na iai ha mau hala. Ko ngahi vaccine ko ni o ku ngawe aki Amerikani, osi whakamo oni i o ku safe, osi whakamo oni i o ku ngāue, osi whakamo oni i o ku nehanga o ta ofi ai COVID taha hiwa. Pe komia i o whakaamu ai ke toko tahana nehanga o whakamafola holo ai tala noa ko e ni. Pe ko kore whakamore more pe ko e toko taha ko e ni ko Barry. Kei ke umau ki he last name. Whakaamu pe Barry, ka pau o ki ai hau whainga maari e pa ke tā mai ki he whika telefoniko e ni. O ke whakama ala ala nge ai tala noa ko ia whekau aki pe a moe whonua e ua noa. O kui kai ke nau fie kau i he huhu vaccine. Hono hinga koe ngahi tala noa ko e ni o ku malawa ke hanga o whakaloto si hatoko lahi. O ku malawa ke ne o hanga whahinga loto irifia ki hakakai na nau os whakaukau te nau huhu vaccine. O kui kai whoke whakamalohi i ai huhu vaccine pe koe vaccination. O kui kai ke whakamalohi i. Kono uhinga koe tau atai na o e tangata ke ne whiri pe tene huhu vaccine pe ikai. Tau atai na e taha kotoa pe ke ne whiri pe tene huhu vaccine pe ikai. O tui pe o ku halai pure anga o ka pau te nauhanga o whakamalohi pe te nauhanga force ai kakai ke nau huhu vaccine. Na e toko taha na e ikai ke huhu vaccine. Pia nai whai hono whaka eke. Na toko taha ko e ni ba ne whakamatala ko e tuutu uni pe ia e ku toke tā. Tuutu uni pe ia e ku toke tā. Peko uhinga tuutu uni ko e ni e toke tā. He ko toko taha ko e ni na ane osi puke ia i he COVID taha hiwa. Pea whakatatau ki he whakamatala ai kau sainisi mo kau toke tā pa pe heke CDC. Ko ki nau tolu ko nau osi puke i he COVID taha hiwa. O ku iai ai whaahinga me au ne malui ko antibodies. Malui aho nau sino pea me he puke i he COVID taha hiwa. Ka uiai pea toko lahi o ku nau osi puke i he COVID taha hiwa. Ka ku nau alu peo huhu ke whakapapau. Ai ako hono whakarea taha ko hono toi lo wa i atu a hono whakapapau i he ikai ke puke i he COVID taha hiwa. Ko iai o ku iai ai kore atu heni ki a Barry. Ono uhinga ko e talanoa o ku sasala holo, me talanoa o ku mafola holo. Toko lahi e kakai o ku nau mauhala. Ke whakama ala ala nge o ku tuipe o ku iai ho poini whakafoofa. Kau whaamu pe ke whakama ala ala. Ki he kakai o ku nau whanongo mai. Ke oua na iai ha mauhala. Pe oua na iai ha iri fia makatuunga i ha whaahinga talanoa pe. Hange koe nau whakahoka atu koe vaccine koe niu o si whakamooni. Kau sai nisi mo kau toke tā o ku ngā ue. O ku nehanga o ta ofi ai COVID taha hiwa. Kau iai bea kakai o ku iai bea e nau reasoning. Ba mo e nau uhinga. Pea o nau tau ataina pe ki he nau uhinga. Whekau aki pea mo e nau whakauhinga i ai COVID taha hiwa pe koe vaccine. Koe mea lelei ai mea koe talanoa, pe koe mea lelei ai mea koe whakahoko mai ha whakakau for all. Ka koe mea koe mahu inga nge ke whakamaala ala. Whakamaala ala ke mahino, ke makatuunga hai ha oua e rea tae mahino. Whekau aki pea moe vaccine. Koe au ofa atu ke te mautolu pea o tau ataina koe konistu tone ia. ko freedom of speech, tau ataina ke whiri pe ai mea o ke tui ke ai, tau ataina ke whiri pe ai mea ke lea aki. Kau te whakawhaofange ka pau te tau pōtala noa, mo whakamatala mai e Barry ai uhinga o ene whakamatala ko ia koe whanua e ua noa, o kui kai ke nau kau i he huhu vaccine, pe au teki fumahino ko hea koe ai uhinga. Kaia, hoi ki mai kainga o ku maua ofalahi atu ke teki mautolo. Whakatawange pe ke mo huhu malu me he vaccine, me he COVID tahiwa, mo o huhu, ta te whitu te mautolo i Amerikani, o ku free, o ku ikai ke totongi. Pea koe vaccine e tolu ko eni Amerikani, o si whakapapau i o ku malu, o si whakapapau i o ku ngāue, o si whakapapau i o ku safe, kia teki nau tolu o ku nau whia ngāue aki. Pea, ko iai tu mua ki o tatau whasi, pea toki o atu haki whakamatala whekau aki, pea moe tutu uni ko ia ai CDC, pea ko Center of Disease Control, whekau aki pea moe tutu uni ke to'o ai mask. O ngongo whakawhiawhia, ai to'o ai mask. Kau whemau pe ki tau toe sio tu o uange ki ai. E tungu ke o atu ai ki whasi ko eni ho ek makainga pea tau toki hoko atu. Whakamaloto hoi ki mo ka inga e tau ke kau whakataha I he whiawhi whakakoloa ko ni. Ko e taimi I California ni, ko e nima wha, pia ko toe ai miniti e ono ki he ono e whiawhi. Ato ai e whakamalo ki te mo tolu hono kotoa pe, o mo kau mai I he paenga wake tari whalau, whakamalo ato ni ki a Mary Mele latu taulahi, whakamalo atu ai tonga e kina e tau leti o wake tari whalau, pehe ki a alere mea who Lindsay po me e Lucia Louis Thompsons, soana tautua a whakamalo atu ho mo kau mai, alere mea who mo soana Turiaki ono, Esther Taylor Maile, Merenaite Langi, whakamalo atu a kau mai, Merenaite, pe whoki ki he hoa o e pure, e meri lau kau tofu. Malo ai kau mai pia me he Bay Area, o whalahi at te koe e meri, pia pehe ki a Sione tu alau makahiri. Eke hoi ki makainga ko e mahalong mo osi whanongo ka toa pe I he lea ko I Palestinian Amerikani. O whakahoko mai ai tutu uni ai CDC. Ke te kinau tolu ko nau osi fully vaccinated, pe ko nau osi huhu vaccine. Gwea vaccine o kuhu tu ou, gwea vaccine o kuhu tu o taha pe, hange ko Johnson & Johnson, o kuhu tu o taha pe. Ka ko kinau tolu ko nau osi fully vaccinated, pe ko nau osi huhu I he ngahi vaccine ko eni, o ku whakahoko mai, o ke tau ataina ke to'o, a ho o mask I he taimini. Pea kuia e fia lahi I he kakai, o e whonuani na nau nofo tari, ke hoko mai ai aho ko ia. Ka kuia ai whehui, o ku o mai ki he tutu uniko ni a CDC, why now? Ko hame au toki whakahoko ai I he taimini, ai tutu uniko eni. Mō mea I kotoa pe na e talu hono whainga e kau politiki, tau te whito ki he kau Republic, Rand Paul, ke to'o ai mask a ki nau tolu ko nau fully vaccinated, pa ko nau osi hoho vaccine. Kana e kalope, ai CDC, pea pehe ki he White House. Kai ke nau fie whakahoko ke vete ai mask o he kakai. Nau loto pe ke I tui pe he kakai, pea nau ke I tauhi pe ai wā mama o. Ko hinga he koe toko lahi a te ki nau tolu, ko toko lahi a te ki tau tolu ko osi huhu vaccine. Pea nai kau ia I he rea Rand Paul, o kai ke make sense. Koe ha ai uhinga o huhu vaccine. Huhu vaccine ke malui, ke ua te tau puke. Pea ko whehu I rewa na e whai e Rand Paul, ka koe ha mea tau kei tui ai mask. Lere mai I he ngahi mahina lahi. E kai peke loto ai White House, pea moe administration koe ni a Joe Biden, ke to'o ai mask. Ko ulanki pe o e whakakau, o kunau loto pe ke nau kei control ai whonuani. Ulaki poinia. Kei loto pe ai demokalati ke nau control ai whonuani. He kono huingana o staimi pe ia ke whei mo to'o ai mask. Mia teki nau tolu ko ia ko nau osi fully vaccinated. Ko harewa hono kehe, hono to'o he taimini ai mask. Mwe taimi koe na totonu ke whei mo to'o fuoloa. Aki nau tolu na nau osi vaccinate. A koe uhinga pe, koe control. Control the people, control the country. ke kei pure ipe. Pe ko taha o uhinga o ku whai ai ai whakakaukau ki he toki whai goni hono whakaata. Pe ko hono whakalea e taha, ko ha good news i ke whanongo ki ai ai kakai. Huai, ko hea hono uhinga. Hono uhinga ko ngahi mea ko toa pe o ku hoko anda i he administration ko e ni. They are bad things. Gas. Cyber attack ko ni koe a Lucia i he pipeline. By the way, ko e pipeline e ua na e tāpuni. Pe ko e halanga lolo e ua, pe ko e halanga kesi e ua, na e tāpuni i Amerikani. Ka pau tika ke mo ilo. Ko e uluaki o e pipeline na e tāpuni Amerikani. Ko e tāpuni a e Palestinian Amerikani Joe Biden. Ai Keystone Pipeline ane sign executive order ke ta ofi ai Keystone Pipeline. Pea te hoko mai ko ni koe ai attack i koe a cyber attack. Pea kutua ki i ko Lucia kune whai ai attack i ko e ni i he pipeline ko i a kui ko e Colonial. Attack i ko e ni na e wesi ai pipeline pe ko halanga lolo pe ko halanga kesi. Pe makatu ungai ai no ai kesi i he ngahi fei tuulahi tau te fito ki he North East. Mahana mo mea kotoa pe i he TV ai kiu ai ngahi mea lele ke nau feinga ki he kesi ke utu e nau mea lele. Pe koto lahi adik nau tolu na nau kiu i hoa e ua, hoa e tolu, hoa e wha. Pa ko taimi kona nau wa atuai ki he kesi, o whakahoko mai, sorry, we run out of gas. We have no more gas. Ko tahai au e palo parema ko eni, na e hoko i he Colonial Pipeline. Ko e whakakaukau ka pau na e ikai ke hanga e Joe Biden o i an executive order o ta ofi pe a tāpuni ai Keystone Pipeline, o ki ai pe ai pipeline ke alternative pe lava ke ngau e aki ke omai ai lolo. Na e whakaeke a John Kerry. John Kerry foki o gunehanga toka ngai. E ta whaki ko ni koe ki he climate change. Pana whakaeke a John Kerry, ulua ki pe, na ane lohi aki i kakai. Na ane lohi aki i ai kakai, ku motolu na mou whanongo i he ngahi polokalama aku na whakahoko atu ki mua. Na elea ai a John Kerry o ne pehe, o giai e tala noa ku mafola holo, pe ko whaamu pe ke ua whakamafola e tala noa loi, o pehe koe green energy e to o ia pe me he taxpayer pe koe tax koe a kakai ke to tongi aki. Ka pehe toko taha ko e ni e John Kerry koe green energy o ku pay by itself. Koe foi lo ia. E kona uhinga koe ngahi bill koe ni unau kei propose konga lahi ai whekau aki ia pe amoe climate change, pe amoe green energy. Mahinu marewa ko John Kerry o ku loi. Ko ia hoek mai ka inga, koe ngā ue ko ia na tala i John Kerry, o ku miriona ai ngā ue, ko hinga koe hanu ko ia kakai, i he tāpuni ko ia o Keystone Pipeline, pe hanu e kakai pe talange e John Kerry, don't worry, o kia there are millions and millions of jobs. E mau pia me he green energy. Hau ki ha honu kei safa pe kakai ko ia na ngā ue i he Keystone Pipeline. Toi hoko mai eni ki he Colonial Pipeline, toi lahi ange ai palo parema. Pea koe huinga ia ko ni koe ai whakakau ai administration ko eni. Kono uhinga, everything look bad under this administration. Pota, it's a mess. Koe ekonomika, it's a mess. Inflation, palo parema. Koe ngahi mea lahi o ku hoko au ke Middle East. Au ke Middle East ko John Kerry foki na e sekeritari i he statei. Pea ko ia na ne hanga whaia ia lea pea moe foreign country. Pea i loai a ene tala ai mea whakapuripuri ki he foreign minister ko ia o Iran. Tangata ko Sharif. O ne hanga tala ai ngahi whakapuripuri pe ko ngahi military secret isileri ki Iran. O whekau aki pea moe pehe o e hanga e isileri o attack Iran. Ko ngahi mea ia na e share ia e John Kerry. O whaampai ki atu hai vitio ko e ni ke mo mea mai ki ai. Ko ne alea ko eni John Kerry pea moe foreign minister ko ia Iran. Na ne whakahoko lolo tonga i he taimi o Trump. Kai ke nofo ki he tawha aki o tonu ke nofo ai kai aluia o area pea mo Iran. He has no business ke alu o area he koe taimia o Trump. Kai ke henai aluia o ne ave ai ngahi secret information ki Iran whekau aki pea moe secret information ai military ko ia Israeli. Lautanga tau tala noa ko ia he Middle East, mahalo mou. Mea ai kotoa pe. Ai mea ko ia hoko i he Middle East. Ko Israeli, ko e whanua kau mea wā ofia o Amerikani. Pe mahalo na mou mea mai pe i he ngahi mea ko ia whana pea mei Hamas, pea me he pota ko ia Gaza, pea me Palestine, o whana mai ki Israeli. O ku whakafuafua, ko e foi missile e tahawhe ni mangiau. Missile e tahawhe ni mangiau, kua whana pea mei Hamas, me he Gaza border ki Israeli. O ku malo pe ko higa ko Israeli ko e topu tahaia i mamani i he defense pe ko e whakawhepaki i o ngahi missile. Pe ko missile e tahawhe ni mangiau na e whana mi Hamas ko e tau mua pe ke whakaauha a Israeli. Whana mai ki Jerusalema. Mo utange ko e feitu ueni na e alo iai ho tau eiki. Feitu ueni na e peki ai ho tau eiki. Feitu ueni na e whaia ngahi ngau e whakamu ui ho tau eiki. I Jerusalema. Mufeinga ai Palestine, Hamas, Gaza, ke nauhanga o whakaauha a Israeli. Ko hea hono uhinga. Hono uhinga pe he ko administration ko ni is very weak. Pe wegen hanga eia o pou-poui ke malui a Israeli. Taure hoko mea ko ni o te keike rea a Joe Biden ia o whaiha ne lau ki he nganga ehu ko ni o ku hoko i he waha o Israeli pe mo Palestine. Ko Israeli o ku topu i he military, neongo si isia Israeli, ka ko ene military, it's very powerful, he ko isileri o kauia i he topu i he poto i he ngahi mea whakakautau. O hange ko ia koe misaile tahafe ni mangiau na whana pea mei Palestine mei Hamas ki isileri. Ko mea ko ia koe o ku whakaoho vare, ko ngahi misail ko eni, o nau ilo ange ko ngahi misail ia na ngahi ia mei Iran. Pa mo wakai ange ki he mea koe no whakahoko e Iran. Ngotolu mo ke mana tui ai paanga koe na ave e Presidenti Obama, lau piriona whakaheka i he whupalati e whiha, ave cash ki Iran. Ko he mea na tau mau mei ai, o no whakatūlu tui i e tau kau sōtia, o whakangari varei, i ngahi ata i mamani. Taimi ia o Obama. Toi hoko mai eni ke taimi ko eni o Joe Biden, toi hoko pe mea tatau. Ka koe mea ko whai ki ai o fo, o kei ke hao a Biden o whai haa ne lau, he koe tau potu tahaini ki Amerikani a Isileri. Pea koe tuu ia koe he taimini, i he wāo Isileri pea mo Palestine. O kia ia ai palo pare mai taha ko hia koe kau politician tau te whito ki a Oma koe toko tahaimi Afrika pa pehe ki a OAC, o kuna uhanga tuku a ki, ko Amerikani ko terrorist. Pea o pehe Oma pea mo AOC, koe mea koni nai hoko i New York 9/11, ko tupu pe ia pea mi Amerikani. O utala e he ongo whewhine ko e ni, whewhine taha mi Afrika, whewhine taha pea mi Middle East. O pehe ko Amerikani ko whanua terrorist. Na e rea Trump ka pau o ku i kai teke sa ia i Amerikani, whamaapo opo me apa ke whoki ke wheitu una ke hau me iai. Kai ke he ko tui ha te mini ai waha o Amerikani pea mo Isileri, ko e take o Amerikani o ku fu vai au pito. Kai ke he te ato e ki vitia o ko ni hoi kuma kainga whekau aki wa mana whaka eke o John Kerry.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Secretary, you just quite literally contradicted yourself. You said you are for all of the above, but you're not. We spoke earlier, Representative Issa asked the question about the Keystone Pipeline. You're fundamentally in disagreement with delivering that fuel into the United States of America. It would beg the question, did the hack on the Colonial Pipeline save you the trouble of having to shut that one down?
Well, Congressman, I appreciate your question.
Mo whatonga e whakamatala a
As a
Kerry.
personal privilege, just say how much I
O koe
admire
ke lava
your
ke tonu.
personal service to our country.
Thank you, Mr.
and your
Secretary.
record. I would say to you this. I don't think it's a contradiction. Yes, we're going to use gas for some period of time. And I'm not one of those that comes in and says, you got to shut it down today, tomorrow. We can't do that. What we can do is begin to take steps that reduce reliance, even as we keep alive the ability to have sufficient gas for the purposes we need.
It's a fair point, Mr. Secretary, but to the point that you made to my friend Mr. Issa, to quote it, that is true. The pipelines are more carbon delivery efficient than rails and trucks, saying they deliver the fuel by using less carbon in order to deliver that fuel. Let me finish the quote. Let me finish the quote and I'll let you respond.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that you want to be adding another line, another one of these more efficient routes. There are alternatives, but yes, pipeline is better than trains and trucks.
So let me tell you why we can do better in meeting our goal of reducing our emissions. All the gas we burn, first of all, gas is 87 point some % methane. Gas leaks. If you, in the Permian Basin, for instance, we have a leakage, even if you have it around 2.7%, scientists say that can be more damaging than CO2. Our leakage is at about 5% or 10% in some places in America. Now, if that's the leakage in America, think what it is in other places. Because of the melting of permafrost and the melting of the tundra, the thawing of the tundra, we're now seeing methane being released around the world that isn't capped, that isn't used. President Biden has put an effort into his legislation to start capping open wells and open mines that are giving off methane in the United States.
Mr. Secretary, could I summarize your position by saying you want no crude or petrol used? Would that be an accurate summary?
The what?
You want no crude, no petrol used in the future. Would that be an accurate summary?
Well, it depends what you mean by the future. We're going to be doing that. We're going to be using crude. Well, crude, first of all, is used for lots of other things than fuel and power. So we're going to use crude well into the future.
Not delivered by pipeline, though.
Well, no, it could well be delivered by pipeline already. We're doing that. But our source of power, President Biden has already made this decision, and the utilities are already accepting it.
I want to ask one more question because I want to yield some time to one of my friends here who may not be able to ask you some questions.
By 2035, though, President Biden is determined we will be carbon-free in our power production.
You're talking about not allowing these new avenues to deliver them, even though they're more efficient, like the Keystone Pipeline. Would there also be an effort to not promote other forms of delivery, that is to say, not permit a new rail car that's being used to deliver that because Colonial is down right now, not permitting a new truck to go over the road, which is what's being used to deliver those fuels right now? Would that also be a part of the program?
No, I don't. I really think we're talking much more reasonably, Congressman, in a way that we have to try to accelerate the transition to clean fuel. That's what we have to try to accelerate. It's not going to happen overnight. So we're going to need, now, I'd rather see gas used rather than coal anywhere in the world. And I think there are ways to try to assist in doing that. But even gas...
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I'm going to yield my time to Mr. Pfluger for a moment.
Okay.
Thank you for yielding. Mr. Secretary, for the first time in 70 years, our country is energy independent. It's a lever of power. It's national security. Energy security is national security. And so you've mentioned that we need to take steps. We have taken steps, as you've clearly highlighted today, from being 15% down to 11%. That's huge. Do you believe that wind and solar can provide baseload capacity for this country?
Not alone.
No, that's absolutely right. We
Not
saw it
yet.
in Texas,
Not
the winter
yet.
storms, and we've
Not-
seen it in California.
I should amend that by saying, Congressman, not yet alone. If we break through on storage,
Gentleman's time has
the
expired.
answer is yes.
I now
Koe whakamatala John Kerry, ka pāte mo whanongo ki ne whakamatala. Koe, it's all come down ki he tāpuni ai halanga lolo, pe koe halanga kesi. He koe nau taumu a ia ke tāmatei ai fossil fuel, mo e oil, ka tau mafuri ki he green energy. Pea ta wakai ki he mea koni koe o ku hoko i he no koe ni ai kesi. Makatounga i he cyber attack koni na whai i he Colonial Pipeline. Ko taumu ape ia ai te mokalati. Ka pau te nau lava o eliminate ai ngahi halanga lolo ko ni. Ka koe mea koe hoko o ku safa ka kai he ngahi ahoni. Ko hia koe no ai lolo pe moe pensini ko ia ki ngahi mea lere. Pe mo si o ko pe i he kiu a ngahi mea lele. Ko palo pare malahi ia ki he kakai. Ai nau whainga ke mau ai nau kesi. Ka kono uhinga pe foki koe mea ia au whakaukau i. John Kerry pe moe administration ko ni. Get rid of the fossil fuel, ka tau turn green energy. O ku si hatui e hanga e he green energy o solova ai palo parema. I ngai whia mao ko ia Amerikani. Tu mo ke to o atu pe moe video ko eni whikau aki pia
Do you
moe.
meet with Iranian Foreign Minister Zarif in Munich during the
Koe John Kerry ai pe eni, i he ene, hange kona whakamatala tu ane nai. I hene miti pia mo Foreign Minister ko ia Iran, Sharif, lolotonga oku kei Palestini a Donald Trump. Mo whakaukau ka pau, koe taimi koni o Joe Biden, pe hau a sekretaria koni koe a Pompeo, Mike Pompeo, o alo whai ha ane ngahi alea i Iran pe ko Isileri, lolotonga o kupure ai Palestini ko ia taimini Joe Biden. That's exactly a mea koni ko whai John Kerry. Alo whai a ene meet, mo ene whakataha pia mo Foreign Minister ko ia Iran, Sharif. Pia mga tuungai ene tala ai ngahi mea whakapuri-puri a Isileri ki Iran. Pia kono la peni, ko ngā uta ai Middle East. Ngahi mea ia na kai ke hoko i he taimi o Trump. The other video ko ni, you judge it yourself.
Security Conference in February 2019?
I don't know if I met with him in 2019. I don't have a recollection of 2019.
Maybe you don't remember the
I met
year.
with him. I know I met with him.
Ko tala no
I
ai
know I
nei
met
ki
with
he
him in 2018.
na miti pia mo Foreign
I met
Minister
with
ko ia
him,
Iran, Sharif.
I met with him, I think, twice in 2018 and twice in
Do
2017.
you recall meeting him in Munich during the Munich Security Conference?
I recall meeting him. I just can't remember exactly which year or when it was.
Were there other U.S. participants in that meeting?
Well, I think it was not a meeting. I think I just.
Were there
had
other
brief
U.S.
pleasantries.
Were there other Americans with you in that discussion?
I don't recall. There were. in
Yeah,
line
tari
number
tatau
two, but I
be
don't
ai
recall
temo
which one.
kalati. I don't remember. I don't recall.
In the meetings that you did have U.S. participants, who were the U.S. participants?
In Oslo, I met with I think John, a fellow named John Feiner might have been with me in Oslo. I don't know in New York. I can't remember who was with me in New York. It was during the UNGA, during the United Nations meeting, and the Oslo meeting was a public event, which I did with the High Representative of EU, the former High Representative of EU. No, she was then still sitting High Representative, and it was hosted by the Norwegian Peace Institute. Or Peace.
Okay, well, I'm just asking if which U.S. participants were in the meeting. Any other names?
But I remember I had other people with me. I have to go back and figure out.
I don't remember.
recall who was the traveling party.
Did the discussion involve foreign affairs?
Writ large, yeah.
Did it involve U.S. foreign policy?
I mean, it
Oh, well, Lloyd.
involved sort of listening to views of what is happening in the world. Where are we? Where are we going? What do you think about this? It was a general conversation, similar to one, by the way, that many members of Congress met with him during that same period when I was in New York and had a meeting in New York. He met with Congress. He met with the New York Times editorial board. He was on TV.
Yeah,
It was
I'm
just
just
a
asking
public
about your
dialogue.
meetings. Any other meetings with, how many meetings did you have with Zarif during the Trump administration?
Sharif ko Foreign Minister
I
ia
think during
Iran.
the Trump administration, I had 4 meetings.
Did you have any phone calls with Zarif during the Trump administration?
No.
Would messages, communications be passed between the two of you
No.
separately?
No,
Through
the only
third
time
parties?
we ever had any communication was about the specific meeting to get together to compare notes on what was happening in the world.
Did you have access, did you obtain any classified information during the Trump administration?
No.
Do you recall having a conversation with the House Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff at the Munich Security Conference?
Don't lie.
Do you recall having an extended conversation with the House Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff at the Munich Security Conference?
I think we had a beer in the Ratskeller underneath the thing, but I don't recall specifically very much.
Okay, there was a main room, because I was there as well. There was a main room where there was a bunch of speakers, and I was there, I watched. I mean, you guys had an extended conversation. You don't recall that conversation?
In the main hall?
Yes.
It's entirely possible. I remember sitting with him having a beer. It was more fun.
But you don't recall having that conversation with the chairman?
Same old.
I don't recall the conversation. It's entirely. I think he sat beside me. We sat on the right side of the hall, looking towards the stage, and I think we sat there.
Okay. Well, I mean, you guys were standing, but when you guys met with Zarif, when you were talking about U.S. foreign policy, would you advocate for your position on policy?
The only time I didn't advocate for my position, when I met with him, during the period of time I met with Zarif, we were in the agreement. From the time President Trump pulled out of the agreement in May of 2018, and I don't recall having another conversation with Zarif after that.
Well, we're running out of time. We have one president at a time, and those conversations weren't helpful. I yield back.
Next.
Hoi mo ka inga koe tahaya o e ngahi whakataha na whai John Kerry. Apa te mo whakatokanga I whakalelei a ngahi tari kone a John Kerry o ku lahi a ngahi mea o kai kene lea mo oni mo lea totonu ai. Pa whakatu tamaki a pito ia ko ngahe koe he koe sekretari ki he Foreign Affair. Pe tau te whito ki e ne share pe a mo Zarif ai minister ko ia, foreign minister ko ia Iran. O ne share mo ia ai ngahi secret information na Israeli. O ku whakatu tāmaki au pito ai mea John Kerry o ku whai. Pe koe kakai ko e ni, koe kakai ia te nauhanga o whakatupu ai whakatu tāmaki lahi ki Amerikani. Ke hoi makainga ko e tau taimi he taimini ko e o no ua fitu pe ko e toe ai o se minite ua fitu pe a mihe o no. Tumua ki o atu ha tau ki I whanongonongo, mea te kinau tolu unau hanga sponsor e tau Polo Kalama, pe a tau toki hoko atu.
Ko iai halolo ia ko ngahui pea vilohi, pea mix mei palataisi. Ke whakatauri a ngahi whakaamu whakasino mo ata mai. Ke mili pea ke whakasanisani mo masani mo whakamanifi. Pea ke foto aki ia ke hakatoa ngā aholahi. Pea ke toki ilo ai e mamani, ko e loloni ia, ko e tāpu aki mei langi. O ua,
Ko ia hoi ki makainga ko e lolo kakala te au, whetutaki marewa ki a Lindsay, takawal tolo po me, mo tolu fie ota ha mo lolo. Pea ki ai pea mo e ngahi kirimi ko ia ki he mo ngahi fofonga, whakafoki ke to e whakafo ofa, ai kiri ho fofonga. Ko ia whetutaki marewa ki a Lindsay, pe ko tarekita, latu manu ki a hua kau, pe ko taha pe o e kau whakafofonga. Ko ia ko e whanongonongo ia pea me he lolo kakala te au. Pea oa nā ngalo ia te motolo e ngahi kahoa. ngahi ka hoa ko e ni hei lala i he lanu kula pia mo e lanu enga pia he ki he koa pia mo e lotion ki he fofonga o e ho e whawhine. Whamanatu atua e ngahi mono ai lolo kakala te au hao pia mo e pia tangai pilo ngahi mono ko ni mo tolu mo osia o ki ai ene lalahi mo ne matolu mo ne molu feunga pia mo e teu ia ki ho mohenga ke hange hatui. Mo tolu ku ki whakahoko mo shoppingi mo kai mai wawau.
Kua ko fi wa he kai han. Fa am pe ya ya ke ki ke sa pa te.
Oh, o me ha family America?
Iyo to ko la he au pite.
Ta ki family ave fika wawau runners. Ono ni mano ato no fit ni meni mata. Te nau lava to tongi America. Te au pik e au i wawau ni o tili wa ki homo api i wawau.
Ha we malo au pito toko. Te tale wa ki ana tol he tai ni.
Ko ia ka inga tonga i Amerika. Ta lewa ki wawau runners ki he ono ni manoa tau noa fit ni mani mata. O totongi haki ikiki pe koha shopping pe ki he lolo ahalai walu ka maulele ki mautol o te liwa ki o nga ngahi o whale. Heu pehe pe whata maa whanaa ia. Wawau runners, telefoni, ono ni manoa tau noa fit ni mata. Only in wawau.
Ko ia koe wawau rana sia te ngotolu o ku whiwhaiha mo shopping. Ako rewa whaskoni, mama e kau whakawhawhonga o lolo ka kala te au. Tori i he tonga mo e toke lau. Ko ia hoi ngoi kainga ko e lolo kakala te au whetu daki marewa ki a linsi taka mātua po me whitu no noa ono walu ono noa ua pe ko whetu daki ki a lātu manuki a hua kau I he ua noa ono hiwa taha tolu noa ono ua lolo kakala te auia, whakawhi mo tolu ki ota rewa ha mo lolo. Tau tai mihe te mini hoi ki makainga ko e o no tolu wha, pe ko toe a miniti e wano ki he fitu. Whamanatu atu pia ko e hoko ai walu, te mautatau atu kai hoko atu whakafoki ki he Bay Area. Ka ke hoi ki makainga ko e whema upe ke toi o atu e vitio ko e ni whekau aki pia mo John Kerry. O ku mahuinga ki tau ilo ai ngahi mea o ku whakatu tā maki, o ku fufu holo i he lalo takapau. Tau te whito ki he kau tangata ko e ni fuoloa tau e nau i he White House. Pea ko nau ilo ai ngahi whaunga ke nau hangai o mio i takai holo. Ai Capitol. Pea ko e kau politiki ko ia koe i Washingtoni. Ko John Kerry ai peeni I hono whaka eke eke.
You say you have a good relationship with Foreign Minister Zarif?
Right now, I don't have a relationship with the Foreign Minister.
Well, when you had one, when you were negotiating, was it good or was it bad?
I would characterize it as professional.
Okay, professional. You still got a security clearance?
Do I?
Yes.
Yes, I do.
You do. Okay. So you're a smart guy, Navy lieutenant, senator for many decades, Secretary of State. You know that since 1979, Iran is responsible for killing more Americans than any other nation state, right? Yep. I suppose you know that.
I've heard that.
Yeah, of course.
Oh my gosh.
You went to Yale, so you're probably familiar with 50 U.S. Code 2204, 18 U.S. Code 2381. I suspect I'm not going to get into it. If you want me to, I will. But, Mr. Secretary, the foreign minister claimed that you had discussed more than 200 Israeli operations against Iranian-backed terrorists in Syria.
Ke mā weke te whakafoki hoi ki makainga. Mo whanongo ki he whakamatala a John Kerry. Fumea ko ni koe na e whehu I atu he senato ko ni ki a John Kerry whekau aki pia mo Iran e nau whainga ko ia ke a teke Amerikani. Whimau pike mo te whanongo whakalelei ai. Ko e sekretari ni ki he statei o koe ki ne ilo ia o me au hoko I Amerikani ka tau te whito ki he security a Amerikani.
With 50 U.S. Code 2204, 18 U.S. Code 2381. I suspect I'm not going to get into it. If you want me to, I will. But, Mr. Secretary, the foreign minister claimed that you had discussed more than 200 Israeli operations against Iranian-backed terrorists in Syria. Did you provide information to Mr. Zarif on Israeli operations against Iranian-backed terrorists during or following your tenure as Secretary of State?
On no occasion. Never.
Never. So Mr. Zarif is a liar.
Mr. Zarif may be confused or incorrect.
One of them is a liar.
What I read about that article said that he was portraying himself as out of the loop and whatever, and quite emotional, apparently, is what I read.
What a liar,
and I've seen him be quite emotional, and I can't vouch for why he did or what he said. I'm just telling you that didn't happen. End of story.
That never happened. And I know you're not under oath, but we've seen many administration officials come to this Congress and lie straight-faced to members of Congress. You're saying, for the record, that never occurred.
The first time I ever heard this number 200 was when I read the article a few days ago. I've never heard of that.
Well, that is heartening to hear, but I will tell you that there's reason for suspicion in this Congress and across America, and I just want to go through the record. In 1985, you as senator traveled to Nicaragua against the administration's wishes to meet with Marxist leader Daniel Ortega. In 2006, you traveled to Syria to meet with the dictator Bashar al-Assad, contradicting President Bush's efforts to isolate Assad for supporting Hezbollah. And I remind you that it's a sea of war and horrifying activities in Syria right now. I mean, if we could have done something with Assad then, maybe we wouldn't be dealing with what we're dealing with now. In 2018, you told the Palestinian Authority to hold on. The Palestinian Authority to hold on and be strong and play for time and do not yield to the president's demands. And finally, following your term as secretary, we know that you met with Mr. Zarif. I know that you said you had a professional relationship. Apparently it wasn't a good relationship, but it was professional enough that you met with him at least 3 times to discuss how to save the JCPOA, undermining President Trump's peace efforts. I remind you that as we speak, the Iranian proxy Hamas is raining down rockets across Israel right now. That's why people are right to be skeptical. That's why we ask this question. And so you say you're surprised and have no recollection of ever discussing these activities with Zarif regarding Israel and Syria. One more time, Mr. Secretary.
I didn't discuss, I didn't even know about this number, as I said, until we read the article the other day.
I'm not asking about the number.
No, I never had a discussion with him about Israel with respect to attacks or anything. No, I told you. That's the end of the story. But I wanted to say something about what you just said. I traveled to Nicaragua as a United States Senator with another United States Senator, an officially sanctioned United States Senate trip, in order to try to learn about what was happening with respect to the war in El Salvador. And you know, Ortega was one of many people we met with. We met with people like you do on any given trip as a member of the United States Congress. And we were handed a letter we brought back to the United States. We turned it over to President Reagan and to Vice President Bush. They had a big meeting about it because he was offering some kind of a peace initiative. And that was the end of it. We didn't have any further involvement or engagement.
He's a brutal dictator and a communist.
You're damn right.
Yeah, that's
You're
exactly
damn
right. He was supporting America.
The gentleman's time has expired.
Zarif.
Mo whanonga mai pe ki he koe skeritare na o e statey I he taimi ko ia o Obama, he taimi ni o kune tokanga I climate change. Ka koe mea o whai ki ai tokanga mai hoha a ko ene whai e mea ko e ngutu loi. Ko ngahi mea ia o ku mei ilo ki ai taha kotoa o koe ke ilo ia ki ai. E tau te whita o ko ia koe fu sekretari ki he statey. Pea toe whai ai ngahi whakataha pa mo e ngahi foreign country, whikau aki pia mo e security o whonuani. Pa mo si o koe ola pe ni o e area ai tangata ko e ni. O kuhanga ai e Palestine, Hamas. O pomu ta e tuku a isileri ake missiles. Koe ola ia ngā ue e kau tangata ko e ni hange ko John Kerry. Ka pada mo whanongo o kuia e toko taha na e heka no ingoa ko o teka. O teka ko e tangata ia o ku Marxist. O manatu I koe mea ia o ku whainga ki ai a administration ko e ni. Ke awhia Amerikani ki socialist, Marxist, pe mo communist. O teka, he's a Marxist. Pe mo sio ki he area o ku whai e John Kerry. O ku nau toi holo I tua. Ka koe mea koe a koe o ku whai ke koe ai toka ngā pe o whakatupu ita he taimeni hi. Koe kai koe ke mahino e netari hango o whaka ape pe. Oh, I don't know. I don't recall. I don't remember. That's a typical Democrat's answer. I don't remember. I don't recall. Tēnau loi pe nau tolu o au ki he ilo e nau loi, tēnau kei loi pe nau tolu. I don't remember. I don't recall. Koe ki tāri mau pe ia o whakahoko e he kau demokrati. Kai ke he hoe ki mai kainga. Ko huinga pe atu ai ongo ko e ni ko huinga he koe ai ene koneki pe mai mea koe ko ulolotonga hoko I isileri he taimini. Ko e whahinga area ai kau tangata ko e ni hango John Kerry. Whakatu tāmaki au pito ia ki Isileri. He kona na eke atu ki ai pena ne share information a military a Isileri. O koe ke whupau a ene tāriba, koe ke whupau ene whakamatala. Au mahina mai koe kakai o ku loi, koe mea pe e toki ilo, ko ha hoko ha ateki Amerikani. Tau lotu pe mo tau kore koe kakai eni o kutotonu ke nau mawahe au pito pia mihe White House. John Kerry. Loi, lohi aki e kakai i he jobs, lohi aki e kakai whikau aki pia mo e tāpuni ko ia o e Keystone Pipeline. We have millions and millions of job. Au ki ahoni, o koe ke ai ha job ia taha. Hau kai whoki nau kea ki nau tolu ki ai. O koe ke nau kea na tō kea nau sai pe ia. They have money. Even Joe Biden. Kono whamiri whangatoko ua katoa Joe Biden. They are millionaire now. They made millions and millions. He taimi koe nei kei Vice Palestine ai Joe Biden. Pea uto ea upe ke taimini. Paka ia mea ia hoko ki Amerikani ki he ekonomika. O koe ki nau fuhohaa nau tolu ki ai. Okay, na futokanga na tolu ki ai, they don't care because they already have millions and millions in their bank. Now nofe na to kai pe me ai. Mo na whakasio mai. Yes, if lere aki pe mo tangi a kakai. Koe kau tangata ia ko e ni, pa ko mea ia ko ni koe o ko whehi ai a Trump e he kakai ko e ni. Koe ngahe e kunau atamai ngalo koe ki nau tue mana tu ia nau tolu e kakai ko ia na wo loi ki ai. Pero uhinga ia mea koe na run ia koe a Trump ki he Palestini. Ko ne whakarea, ko uhinga the forgotten one. Kakai ko niko wo mai pe ko niko lohi aki i panau alu. Pe hange ko ia koe ko John Kerry, Joe Biden mona whakatoko ua, Hunter Biden, mona ngahi Freni. They are okay. They are rich. They are millionaire. Kei nau kea nau toria ka iaha mea e hoko ki he ekonomika. Ka iaha inflation. Tesi o teo kai peke fuhoha a Joe Biden ia ki he ngai mea u hoko i Amerikani. Inflation. Pea hano uhinga. Kui ngahe kei affect ki nau tolu ia. He kei uesia ki nau tolu ia. Nau ta utupi nau tolu pia mio nau whare mi he White House o whakasio mai ki he ngala holo ai kakai. Koe kakai ia oku fie mau ke aka ki tua. Koe whiri midterm i he tauka hao wafe uoua. Whakatawange pe ke whiri he kakai a kau taki ke nau mai o whakafoke a whanua. Pega u ke wafe uawha tau tui pe tau lotu. Toi whoki ma Trump. Whakahawhi whanuani. Koe kakai kone hange ko John Kerry. Ngutu mioi, ngutu loi, mo whanango pe kono whakaeke koe a koe e he senator. O koe peke ne lava ia o tari hanga tonu. Umea ia na ostonu ke ne ilo ki ai o whakaape pe ia. Au mahino mai rewa o ku loi. Kake ho ikma kainga koe tau taimi koe. Ono whawalu. Pea whekau aki pea moe military ko ia Amerikani. Ki he hao ko ia ai wokeness. Mo iloi. Ai wokeness. Maha ko tokolahe mo toko mo usmahi no i ko hai wokeness e taimi. Wokeness ko e whainga li liu o e whanuani. No whainga ke li liu o e whanuani. Pea kanseri aki nau tolu o kai ke nau tui tatau. Pea ko kamata ke hu mai ki he military. Ko e whaiviti oko ni ko tangata e ni na ene i he military he tau e ua fulutupu. Pea kone whakatokanga i ai mea o ku hoko i he military ko ia Amerikani. And by the way, ko e ongongo e taha o ku uiai ai whakairifia a siaina ke nau ateki a Australia. They threatened to attack Australia. Si o tau kāinga Australia o ku whakairifia I e si aina ke nau ateki. Tau lotu. Ke si whakahawhi pia Australia. Ka koe toko taha ko e ni hoi ki mo kāinga ko Pete. Fe o atu ke mo whanongo mai whekau aki pia mo e a atu ai wokeness ki he military.
Is obsessing over yesterday's news. Got it. Liz Cheney hates Trump, can't get over it, and is out of step with the GOP. The Congresswoman from D.C., her time is up. Bye-bye. Maybe that's the story the Democrats and their friends in the media want us to be covering. The shiny object. Distraction is a very powerful device, and we fall for it often. What if I told you, instead, a far more sinister and dangerous effort is underway right under our noses right now at the Pentagon? Something I know a little bit about. I've been in the military for the better part of 2 decades. I was in the Army National Guard until last month. We all saw this coming, and now it's here. This is not just the woke military stuff you've been hearing about. This is not an extremism stand down or a social justice reading list or even a foolish CIA recruitment video we've all seen by now. This is worse. This is way worse. This, my friends, is a purge. A purge of the Defense Department, led by a new and now powerful radical leftist, a 1619 Project activist, a hardcore social justice Democrat, a man who believes all Trump supporters are racists and extremists. And what must we do to racists? We must define them, and then we must purge them. So who is the Pentagon's newly minted MAGA purge man? Well, meet Bishop Garrison, the new senior advisor to the Secretary of Defense. His portfolio is diversity, equity, and inclusion, but his purview is much wider. Never heard of him? Me neither. They like it that way. Bishop Garrison has been on the job at the Pentagon for 4 months now, hired in the wake of the events of January 6th, the ongoing and ultimate justification. They sent 25,000 troops to the Capitol, built a wall around it, and now the rest begins. According to an official Defense Department memo signed on April 9th, less than a month ago, by the Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin himself, Bishop Garrison is now in charge of Countering Extremism Working Group. The group's first meeting was April 14th. They meet weekly. Maybe they met today. There is work to be done. The Pentagon's Countering Extremism Working Group, which is a top Defense Department priority, is immediately charged with the following. Get this. Revising the definition of prohibited extremist activities. Creating a reporting process for vets, soldiers who have left the force, to report extremist groups. So now we have a veteran spy network, essentially. And forming yet another commission to study extremist behavior in the military. There's more. This working group will also recommend changing the military justice system in order to address extremism. Good. Woke justice. Enhance the military's insider threats programs to report concerning behaviors. This used to be for, say, foreign spies. I've done the training, but not anymore. We have new insider threats. Screening publicly available information on new recruits with continuous vetting to include algorithms into social media accounts. Better check your kid's phone if you want him or her to be a staff sergeant someday. Hope they didn't TikTok about Trump or call the election rigged. The recruiter will not tolerate that. And finally, they're going to update all training, especially on gray areas such as reading, following, or liking extremist material online. Catch all that? They're going to redefine extremism, empower veterans to surveil each other, reevaluate who the real insider threats are, screen the social media of new military recruits, and update all training materials.
Kau ki whakamatala no atu pe, ai mea koe nu whakamatala e Pete. Whekau aki pia moe military. Ka rohi ngā koe nau whakaukau koe kau mui koe a koe a Trump, koe kau supporters of Trump, koe kakai whakatu tā maki koe kau extremist. Pia koe kakai koe ni nau e nato koe kau terrorist, pa nau pehe o koe ki hato tonu ke nau ihe military.
But the big question is, who's deciding what's extreme? Well, Bishop Garrison, of course, with the Secretary of Defense right behind him. Now, Bishop Garrison is a West Point grad, served 2 overseas tours, and holds 2 Bronze Stars for his service, and we sincerely thank him for that. But what does Bishop Garrison believe today as a civilian? Is he really radical? Maybe he's just another, Hillary Clinton or Biden-Harris staffer, which he was. How do I put this? The White House just put the equivalent of Ibrahim X. Kendi, the author of How to Be an Anti-Racist, in charge of vetting the entire U.S. military, past, present, and future. A believer that our founding was in 1619 will now be vetting our armed services, a few of which go back to 1776. And since we're in the mood for vetting the military, let's check a few of Bishop Garrison's past tweets. And there are a lot of them. In July of 2019, for example, the Pentagon's brand new senior advisor sent these 2 tweets. Support for him, meaning Trump, a racist, is support for all his beliefs. Also tweeting, he's dragging a lot of bad actors, misogynists, extremists, and other racists out into the light, normalizing their actions. If you support the president, you support that. There is no room for nuance with this. Yeah. There's no room for nuance. If you support the president, you support extremists and racists. You support all of his beliefs as we define them. Crystal clear. Bishop Garrison said far worse about Trump for years, but that's not the point. The scary part is what he believes about anyone who supports Trump. You are racist. You are an extremist. The equation is simple for Bishop Garrison. If you support Trump, and supporting Trump makes you a racist and extreme, then in the world of Bishop Garrison, Trump supporters are de facto extremists. No nuance, no question, no quarter. You see, this isn't about white supremacy or white nationalism. Those views and tattoos have been banned in the military for a long time. If I had a white supremacist or racist in my infantry platoon, I could and would kick them out. I'd have the duty. But I didn't have to, because it wasn't an issue. I served with black, brown, and white soldiers. But in all honesty, all I ever saw was Army green. Yeah. That's what the Army taught me. And that's how I led my men. But for Bishop Garrison, all he sees is red, MAGA red. But Pete, this is just a study committee to study extremism, not political persuasion. Oh, really? Think again. It actually gets worse. In March of this year, a leaked 17-page DARPA presentation, DARPA is the Pentagon's research lab, marked unclassified, outlined extremism and insider threats to the DoD. The document is very startling and would be resource material for Bishop Garrison. It's a type of fertile DoD cultural soil he's standing on right now. Not only does this document assert that extremism is rampant in the military, but it suggests a new form of extremism I'd never heard of in the military, called patriot extremism. Yeah. The document defines patriot extremism as this ideology holds that the U.S. government has become corrupt, has overstepped its constitutional boundaries, or is no longer capable of protecting the people against foreign threats. Wait, so thinking the U.S. government is corrupt, has overstepped its constitutional boundaries, and can't defeat foreign threats makes you an extremist? Those views are mainstream conservative thinking today. Those are dangerous, dangerous words. Or maybe that's the point. We're all radicals. May I refer you, DARPA, say, to the Declaration of Independence? The document goes on to name anarchists and racists as well, and uses this photo collage of extremist symbols. Many of these symbols are racist or anarchist. But come and take it? You see that flag in the upper left corner? That's about as common of a military phrase or tattoo or T-shirt as you're ever going to see on Private Murphy. In fact, I have 2 T-shirts of that at my house, not including this one that was a lighter take at the start of COVID-19. Don't take my toilet paper. But maybe we're missing it. Maybe it's not just about January 6th, not just about Trump. Maybe despite all the PC and woke curriculum taught to kids these days, the U.S. military today really is full of extremists and racists. Maybe I just missed it. course not. On April 20th of this year, less than a month ago, two of America's top generals, the head of U.S. Strategic Command and the head of U.S. Space Command, testified before the Senate Armed Services Committee. Both were asked if extremism is a problem in their ranks.
I am very confident that the number of extremists in my forces is 0. So if there are any extremists in my organization, 1, they hide it very well, and 2, it's just a matter of time until I get to them.
I would tell you right now that we have done everything that Secretary Austin has asked us to do in terms of training and awareness, but in my organization, I would say that number is 0. Throughout my career, I have not seen that, so I believe it's close to 0 in my organization, if not 0.
Koe whakawhehu I koe na ongo ke nolo koe nā whekawaki pia moe eke, whakaeke ai military pe koe ai extremist koe kau pōpōia pe koe kau support au Trump koe kau extremist pe koe kau racist o ku ui aki ki nau tolu. Pia nai whai hono whakaeke o ongo ke nolo koe nā ongo maalunga ia I he military Amerikani. Pe oku na whakatokanga I ai extremist I he military, pa ko taria ngo ke nolo koe nā, o koe ke ma whakatokanga, o koe ke whakatokanga ka pau oku iai, they hide it very, very good. Ka I he taria ke nolo oku ne tui, o koe ke iahami ako extremist. Aia koe kono whakarea taha, o koe ke kau pōpō koe a Trump, o koe ke nau uhange koe mea koe a oku whakamatala koe kau racist, pe koe kau extremist. Eke, ko tūnga ia ko ia military ko ia Amerikani tai minika whakaosiat pe whaiviti.
0 or close to 0. And if we find him, we'll get him. Not good enough. Who is dispatched to quickly dispel those foolish notions? You guessed it, Bishop Garrison.
We would be remiss if we didn't admit to the fact that there is a problem with extremist behavior within the military. That is to say that one extremist is one too many.
Whatonga ia whakamatala ai uriuriko nā, Bishop, o kune kei tukwaki pe ia o kuia ia extremist I he military, pea ai au whima oe ke root out ki nā tolu pe taaki mai ki nā tolu me he military, ai kau pōpō pe kau supporter ko ia a Trump. Ko e anga ia ai whakamatala ai Bishop kua nā, ia koe whare ia ki he taki ko ia o e whakautau a Amerikani.
The purge is coming. They see their opening, they have the power, and they have their men in the right places. They say extremism is a huge problem. Their man says Trump supporters are extremists, full stop. So where does that leave Trump supporters, patriots, and conservatives in the military today? Vetted, closeted, or worse, kicked out. The left knows that the military is one of the last traditional, aggressive, value-based organizations in America. So they must dismantle it as well.
Koe o mō whanau ki he whakamatala ai tāta koe nā, Pete, nā ne I he military, he ngahi tau lahi tau e ua fulutupu. Pea o kune whakatokanga I ko hia koe kau supporters ko ia a Trump, mō manatu I ai mea ko ia nai hoko I he Capitol Hill, o kunau kei tukuaki I pe a Trump, I he mea ko ia ahono ko ia o Sanuari. Ka ko mea ni koe o kumari e. O kui ke nau hanga nau tolo o whakamoreki ha taimi. Ke nau whakatotolo pe ko hai na ne hanga o whanai. Ai veteran ko ia whewhine ko Babbitt. O koe ki nau whakatotolo, ipa koe ki nau hanga nau tolo o whekumi ki he mooni pe ko hai na ne hanga whanai. Ai whewhine veteran ko ni. O nau tuku noa I pe ki nau tolo. Ka nau tuki hanga nau tolo ha kūre ai ki mea kotoa pe I he mea kona hoko I he ahono o Sanuari. Pe aku kei nofo pirisone ai a tokolahi. Tokolahi ki nau tolu nau whakamatala na e tā ki nau tolu I he pirisone. Aia kono whakarea mahi no. Koe nau whinga I uhange peni koe whakatanga I koe ai lotu. Kua pau ke hanga o whakaikai. A ho pōpō ki a Trump. O hange koe whinga koe e kau whakatanga e lotu ke whakaikai i. Ai nau tui ki he eiki. O kai ki toi kehe pia moe whainga ko eni ai temo kalati. Ke nau hanga o ngahuna ulaki ui pe ai kau supporta ko ia Trump ko e racist, extremist. Pia whakatu tāmaki e hanga na whakaukau. Pia ko talu e nau, o kai ki toi kehe ni me he whiri ko ia ko he wafe tahau no. O ku nau kei a vea pe i he whiri ko he wafe tahau no. Pea o ku tatau pe mo mea ko ni ko mea ko na hoko he Capitol Hill. Ko teimi ko ia koe o nau tala noa ki ai. O ku laka nge ia o nau hanga whako whakatatau ki he Pearl Harbor. Pea ko pomu ko ia Pearl Harbor. That's how much hate they have for Donald Trump. Ko lahi a koe e nau whehi a koe ia Donald Trump. Pea ko nau hanga rewa whakatatau i. Ai mea koe na hoko i he Capitol Hill. Ki he ateki ko ia i Pearl Harbor. Ko ateki Pearl Harbor na mate au toko lauafe. Mau ai mo ngahi waka. Manuao, wakatau. Ko mea koe na hoko i he Capitol Hill. Ko polisi koe na mate koe heart attack. Ko sotia koe ni poko veteran na whewhine koe ni Babbitt. Na e whanai. Ka o koe ke kea ai temo kalatia ke nau hanga whakatotolo i peko haina ne whanai. Ko ngahe koe ke fumahu inga ia ka nau tolu. Ka mahu inga ka nau tolu ke nau kumi a ki nau tolu na nau i he Capitol Hill o whakahu ki nau tolu. Ko ea ngai a koe ni koe o tuu ko ia ai matakari ko eni. O kui na tolu ko extremist, ui na tolu ko racist, pe hange ko whamatala pid. Unau loto ke root out ki nau tolu. O hange ai kau supporta ia o Trump i he sio ko ia koe ai matakari ko ni kono vari i ki he palaku taha. Whakatatau ka Hitler, whakatatau ki he Pearl Harbor. Whakatatau ka ki toiha whaahinga mea whakalirifu hono whakatatau ki ai. Ai mea kona hoko i he aho ono o Sanuari. Ai huu pe aka kai naka ki ai ha mate ai. Koe mate pe na hoko ai whana i kona koe oe whewhine sotia. Ka una wari foki kono huinga ke nofo he atamai o e kakai ko Donald Trump ko tangata kovi. Ko Donald Trump o kune hanga o whakatupu ai moweu he whonuani. Ko hea hono uhinga o tahape. O kunau whenga ke oua pe na toi o ngonare o Trump. Pea ko mea eko unau whai ko ia i he military. Huinga ko nau whakatoka ngai o kai ki lava e nau tolu ke whakalongoi ai kau supporters o Trump. Therefore, nau hanga rewa o mai he military. Kumi a kakai ko ia kau supporters o Trump, kau extremist. Ko hinga he nau whakatu tāmaki ki he security Amerikani. Taaki mai rewa nau tolu pia mi he military o tau te ai. Mosio ki he anga o whinga ko ia ai temo kalati. Ke nau hanga o vari ki he palakutaha. Kau kai peke nau ngawe na tolu ke nau whekumi. Ko haina ni hanga whanai. Ai whewhine ko veteran, ko whewhine pailate i he tau. Ko Babbitt. Kai ke nau kea na tolu ke whai ai whakatotolo ko ia. Kono hinga he ukai ke whenā pasi ia pia moeanga o e nau tui mo e nau whakakaukau. Ko hamea pe ukau kovi ki a Trump, ko mea pe ia te nau whinga ko ia ke nau hanga o whakatotoloi. Kai ke hoko tau taimihe hoi kumakai inga ko osi ai mini te hongo fulu pia mi he fitu, ka tuku mo ate hatau ki fasi. Pia tau toki hoko atu. Ka ko huinga pe atu ai ngahi ongongo ni hoi kumakai inga ko ngahi mea o ku hoko i he whonuani pia hoko i maamani. O hangi ko whakamatala ko ia Pete, tangata nane i he sotia, i he malai o e tau. Pa hune ilo kano kato inside out yang hai mea o hoko i he military ka tau te fito ki he taimi ko eni. O kwhinga i ai ke kumi ai kau supporters o Trump i pia root out ki nau tolu. O tau tea pe ko haha whainga mea e whai ki ai. Kono hinga ke ona toi o ngona re o Trump. O na tau te whanau here o Trump. Neongo oku i kai ke Palestine he taimini. Ka kono re o nai o ke re o lahi pe ia o ngona i feitu u kotoa. Pe o kai ke pūria ki he kakai, ai ngahi ngā ue pe amoe taki a Donald Trump. Koe Palestine ko e ni very weak. Pe o ne o mai mo kakai hange ko John Kerry, kakai o ku loi. Pe koe huinga pe ia mea koe na nau hangai koe o whenga i ke to'o ai mask. Nau whenga i ke to'o ai mask e kakai mutolu mo osi vaccinate. To'o mo mask e mutolu. Koe hao no huinga, kono huinga ke iaha ki fo i good news ke fia kakai. Ke hongo e kakai u fia o konu hanga hai Palestine ko ni o tutu ni mai ke to'o ai mask. So hallelujah. Koe huinga pe mea u to'o ai mask. Ko hinga ke iaha ki mea lelei, because everything under this president is a mess. Ko border, it's a mess. Immigration, it's a mess. Ko Middle East, it's a mess. Economica, it's a mess. Keystone Pipeline, cyber attack, it's a mess. Everything. Mea kotoa pe i he administration ko ni. Nothing is good. Kovi ka toa. Pe ko huinga pe ia mea ko nau pe ai. Ai haki i mea. Ke fia ai kakai. Pe ko i mea pe nau whakaukau ke ai. Talang ke to'o mask. Of course, fia kakai he to'o mask. Ka kono huinga ko nau ai ko ha mea. Ke ngari sai ai pe hanga no ai kakai. He nau i loi. Ko mea ko toa pe nau fai. Oku palo parema. Palo parema lahi au pito. Hei he tunga ki ato ki foi fasko ni ma ki mo tol hoi ki makainga pe tau toki. Veve mo ki ato ai. Whanang nongo ni pe a mi he toko tau whapalo.
Koe lofa talamatangi. Ngahi mātua, o kumoa sia nai hono whakaukau i hafounga, ke mauai ha tipiloma, ha taha ho whanau na nofo mihe ako, pe o kuke o sia nai koe, he ikai ke lelei, pe futo lalo a si whainga whakaako a ho whanau, mo kau mai lewa ki he polokalama lofa talamatangi, i he fiafi pule lulu katoa pe, me he ono e fiafi ki he hiwa e fiafi, taimi a ita. Ka ke whakatu a meria lewa koe, ki ha mea o tau he fuuteri o yako. Koe polo kalamani, tene to'o mo tafi ho ongo sia whakaako, ka e lawa ho whanau ke nau whakau tu, mo nau ngahi tipiloma, ki a ka urelei ai whamiri, siasi, pia moe whanua. Io, kau mai ki he lofa talamatangi, me he reti o wāke tarifolau, ke tau wheringi aki, mo ngau e whakataha, ke langa e tonga katoa pe i tonga eiki, pe i he tapa pe o i kolope. Whapapatu, awhapamu.
E Dr. Whapaluia mea mo e visone ki he kahao e ako, e tau whanau. Hule lulu kotoa pe he taimi Nima, California, ono a Utah. Nā ku whakamatala tu ki mua hoi ki makainga ai ai lea ko ia a Dr. Fauci na ne. Lea ake o pehe maha ko hata ue ua pe tolu. Te tau kei tui mask pe. Pe ko whakamu oni anga te kimu tolu. Ai uhinga o e hanga e he administration ko e ni, tau te whitu ke CDC. O whakangofua ke to'o ai mask. Gono uhinga, everything is ugly. Everything is no good. Everything is bad news. pa ko hinga ia na o mai ai o ngongo ko ni ke behe it's a good news. Ka te ato e whai video ko ni whekau aki pēr mo e whinga ko ia ai taha o kau Senator Rand Paul. I he taimi ko ia ko e na stotonu ke to'o ai a mask. It makes sense. About they were fully vaccinated. O tonu ke to'o. Ka nakai ke nau hanga e nau tolu ia o whakangofua. Kono hinga ke nau ke control. Kono toki au mai ko ni ko e ki he taimi ko e ni nau iloi. Nau wakai atu ki he mea ko toa pēu nau whakahoko i he White House. It's a mess. Nau whakao rewa, ai whai good news ko ni. To'o mask. Ai mea anai whai ki ai whenga ai kau senator mo kau politiki.
Still support funding of the NIH funding of the lab in Wuhan.
The NIH has not ever and does not now fund gain of function research in the Wuhan Institute.
Ko e ia ko vitio ko na whikau aki pia mo e toi whai a sio ki he tupuanga ko ia o e COVID tahahiwa pe ko coronavirus. Ko Dr. Fauci I he wakai ko ia Rand Paul. Ko tangata na ne hanga o whani. Pea whakanongi he whakamatala ko ia Dr. Fauci. Nai kai gene fund. Na kai gene fund directly, kana ne fund ai kau taha, o kunau hanga o fund ai Wuhan research. E mo whanonga mai ki ai.
We have not funded gain-of-function research on this. I will repeat again. The NIH and NIAID categorically has not funded gain-of-function research. Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to say, I don't know how many times I can say it.
Well, maybe one more. How many times can he say it? Dr. Fauci being very careful with his words with Senator Rand Paul today. Fauci says the NIH and the NIAID never directly funded gain-of-function research at the Institute, the Wuhan Institute of Virology. But like we said, before that's true, but it's also misleading. You see, the NIH, headed by Dr. Fauci, sent $3.7 million to a nonprofit called Echo Health Alliance, which then turned around and sent $600,000 from that grant to the Wuhan lab. I hope you follow.
Echo Health, ia mo whanau mai ki ai, ko e kautaha ia na whani e Dr. Fauci.
That, take your time, play this back. Dr. Fauci's favorite sparring partner joins us now, Senator Rand Paul. Senator Rand Paul, you feel as though, using some of the things I just said, that Dr. Fauci was being deceptive today. In what way?
Well, I think it's incredibly important that the audience know what gain of function is. They take an animal virus that's benign and does not infect humans, and they juice it up, they make it a super virus so it can infect humans. Now, ostensibly, this is done to study the virus, but there's a danger if that virus leaks that it could kill a lot of people. So when I asked him about this research, we knew the answer. The answer is this, that there's a famous scientist in the Wuhan lab. Her name is Dr. Shi, and she published a paper a couple years ago, which has been reviewed by MIT and says that it's a gain of function research. But in the byline, she has to list the sponsors. She lists Dr. Fauci and the NIAID as a sponsor of her research, which everybody acknowledges gain of function research.
Ko ia ko sponsor of a research ko Dr. Fauci, ko mo ilo pe sponsor kono whakapaanga funding. Ko kukalo hola Dr. Fauci, ko e whakatatau ki whakamatala kona ko e Dr. Z. Ko Dr. Fauci na ne hanga o sponsor ai research ko ni.
Up these super viruses. So I don't know how he can get around this. He could argue, oh, it was an intermediary group. We gave it to Eco Health who gave her the money. I can't imagine he's on national television saying that he didn't do this when the peer-reviewed journal has a byline that says the author, this Batwoman, this scientist from the Wuhan Institute, that she acknowledges that the money came from Dr. Fauci and his institute.
Mo whanongo ki ai ko Dr. Fauci na ne hanga o whakapaanga pe ko sponsor, pe ko fund ai eco, whatever it is, eco research. Ani ko tano ki ai a Rand Paul. Koe mea inu whekau aki pia mo whekumi ki he tupuanga o e coronavirus he ku kei kalo pe a siaina. Na kai ke tupu ai ka koe o ku whai ai whainga ai kau tangata koe hanko Rand Paul. Ke mau ai tupuanga to tonu he ukai pe ke fie tokoni mai siaina ia. They don't want to share information, they don't want to share ai ngahi paperwork o research ko ni. Pea kalo rewa Dr. Fauci o pehe na kai ke kau ia i hono whani. Ka uase whakamatala ai toke tā ko ni Dr. Z. Na e ka ko Dr. Fauci na ne hanga sponsor ai iko.
So this is a dangerous act. Okay, let's say it's science. I want to stop the next one, so I got to see what happens when we activate these viruses. But other people say it's too dangerous. If this gets out, it's going to be devastating. Somehow it could have gotten out. Is that what you're saying, Senator?
I don't think we know for sure, but yes, it could have gotten out, and there are a lot of people arguing that there are several different unusual aspects to the virus that make it look like it came from a lab and not from nature. They haven't found an intermediate host. They haven't found anything between the bat and the human. Both SARS and MERS went to an intermediate host, like a ferret or a civet. But the other thing that's peculiar about this is that when we look at this and we say, you know, did it come directly? The way they're studying this in the lab, they studied the SARS virus. This is the one like COVID that came around in 2004, but had a 15% mortality. So they juiced up this already deadly virus and made it more infective into humans in the lab. They've admitted that they did that, but can you imagine 15% mortality? COVID-19 has a 1% mortality. That means instead of 3 million people dying worldwide, if one of the viruses that she worked on with NIH money got out, 45 million people could have died. There are 11 labs like this in the U.S. that are studying animal viruses that they're transforming into deadly human viruses. 11 labs like this in the United States.
So what is important for people to understand is that forgetting about Dr. Fauci and his future or your political future, this is about understanding how this started to stop the next virus. If we don't understand how this started, we're going to get slammed again and we're going to be ill-equipped once again. I don't understand the lack of curiosity from Dr. Fauci. This is his business. Why is that not his obsession rather than being on 25 talk shows a day?
If you want to be even more confounded by this, they wanted to investigate what happened over there. The person they investigated is the head of EcoHealth. So they hired the person to investigate whether there was a problem at the lab. They hired the guy that gave them the money. So if something came out that said this virus came from the lab, do you think the person that gave them the money might have culpability?
Absolutely.
So they hired the guy to do the investigation who has a conflict of interest here. So you start to wonder, all of these wagons are circling, the Chinese communists aren't talking, we gave them the money. I mean, there's a lot of potential problems here. Yeah. But once again, I'm not saying it did come from the lab, I don't know. But there's a lot of evidence that makes me worried about this lab, and the fact that people are not being honest, the fact that Dr. Fauci would lie and say that he didn't give any money to this lab. Now, maybe his answer is like you said, he gave it to an intermediary who gave it to them, but if that's his answer, I would think that's a kind of a curious way of saying it didn't happen when it really did happen.
And I got to leave it here. 4 months into the coronavirus emergency, the deputy director of the NIH wrote an email to EcoHealth. And they said, quote, "You were instructed to cease providing any funds to the Wuhan Institute." Peter Danzig is the chief scientist there. He quickly got 77 Nobel Prize winners to sign a statement saying not to deprive them of their money. What's the desperation to get Western money into an area where we know the virus came from some way, somehow?
But here's the other interesting thing. If Fauci's deputy is writing a note saying that they're going to stop the money, that implies that there was money flowing to the Wuhan Institute. He says no money was flowing to the Wuhan Institute. Well, then why was it stopped? I mean, none of this makes sense. None of it makes sense at all.
And I just wonder when a Democrat, and I hear Senator Menendez and others, are beginning to mobilize to understand that this is national security, and we got to find out. It'll be the biggest liability case in the history of man. and China would be at the forefront, and maybe some others. Senator Rand Paul, thanks for asking the tough questions, especially over the last year, and especially today as it has to do with the science. I know you got 20 million things to do. I appreciate you joining us tonight.
Thanks.
Hi, Glenn Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want
Rand Paul ia, pia mo e whakamatala whikau aki pia mo Dr. Fauci, ene fufu, ene sponsor ko ia ai tupuanga, ai research ko ia ki he coronavirus. Ada ki whatika ni maki mo tolo ho ki makainga.
Good night. Take care.
Kamalata ni ka Lucia Louis Thompson, svekia La Papa. Kamalata ka mai La Papa, kamalata. Famalotu for the IC. Tamai Lucinita, Asibene, Loi Hene Toonga Lea, Mago Wingaliya, John Kerry. Papa ko spy na osnaivi ke oatu ai me afana ala dula papa o gune to e tamate ipe e ia amerikani tala ipe o kai kene manatu o tonu ke tu ai me afana ala dula papa Teu whanongo ki ai a whe. Pauline latu o whiwhita whanawhi whamalo atu e kau mai. Te ka lusnita ta tafu, walahi atu te koe. Tau lama a whawhine tonga o kui he tau tolo. Pehe ke hoa o e pure. E me li lau kau tofu. Whanong ki ai tai mini Lindsay o ia me. Ia o whātu Lindsay, ko malo ko na mukea o lele ki ngawe. Essa teila mai re whamalo atu e kau mai, da moi whakarea mai, whamalo da ko o whakatika te koe. Soana turia ki ono, whamalo atu malo e da malo e koe ni. Pea une whakarea mai pea me Melbourne, Australia. Soana, mauloto atu pe ma Australia. Ange koe ngongo na ko atu. Nau whakairifia i ke Atekia, Australia. Ko marotu pure porisi, o ku whakahoko mai ko e tau sound, mo e ata o whakaofa. Ko ia ato ai whakamalo ka te mo tolu hono ko tō pē o ku mo kau mai ki he polo kalama ko e ne whi unu koulai tonga hangi ko ia nei whakahoko mai he whahinga he ni ko e whahinga ko ni o ku nau to e whainga pē ke whakaauha Amerikani. Ko e lea ia a Donald Trump. Lea Donald Trump nane pehe they hate ko hahana wharea. Ko e nau whehia o ku lahi ange ia I he nau ofa I he whonua. Their hate is more than their love for the country. Pa koe uhinga ia o e mea koe ni. Kono uhinga pe koe nau whehia ia Trump. Pea o ku nau mahuinga nga nau tolu ia ke nau whakahoko e nau whakakaukau o ta tau e pepe auha Amerikani pe ikai. Tau lotu pe ke si whakahau whi whonuani pe pehe ki Australia o si asi mai China is threatened to attack Australia. Lusnita, God bless America. Monelahi. Ke ho makai nga ko tau tai mi he tai mini ko e fitu tolu noa pe ko e hafe ai valu. Tu mo ke atu hatau ki whanongonongo pe a ospe ko ia pe a tau hoko atu ki he tau wongongo. Ko e mo tolo ku fie whakatau ha mo nuku hiwa. Whetutaki mai rewa ki a Meleseini. Meleseini piutau pe a mo Toni piutau.
Oko kei lai koe nuku hiwa. I kai, koe vai nonu ia e tau whangakui. O katoa ia ono aho mo no pōni. Pe whakasai nisa aho no ngā hui. He eku inu ngofua aho no anga. Pea taha afe nimangi au aho no mamana. Seuke. Pea toi whakaatu I foku mo hono kakala. He ko hono ao ngā ko tāgi tahi, pea tāgi uta. No ngā ia suka, ngā koe toto, mo toto mau olunga. Saigi ai arthritis, kauti, pea moe kahi. Pea whakatau pasi ai mafte fua, ata mai, moe iwi lahi. Kai whanaafi ai mo uilelei he ko hono tavi ia. He koe nonu, nai tori ia mi Hawaii, Tahiti, Haamoa, pea mo Tonga, pea kuone mafola I Europe, Asia, pea mo Amerika lahi. Koe nuku hiwa ia pea mo hono ngahi ao ngā, tā rewa, ke otaha o nuku hiwa, ki he ono walua, ni ma ono wha, fitu nono ataha. Ono walua, ni ma ono wha, fitu nono ataha.
Ko ia koe nuku hiwa mo whetutaki marewa ki a Mereseini pe ko Toni piutau. O ta rewa ha mo nuku hiwa ki te mo tolu o aonga ki a nuku hiwa. Ko e vai foko ni ko e ngahi meihe nonu pa mo iloi pe ai nonu. Ulele ia ki ho tau sino. Talu e tau tupu I tonga me tau ilo ai mahu inga o e nonu. Ato ki whasiko ni pea maa Esther Taylor Maile. Pea moe Maile Tawani he wha.
Tra teine e wahelo tokolo. Malu aki maisi I ata o e po. Ola pae manatu o kufane o e moto. Pea mate I e sio pau ki e tangi e moto. Perfiu me o teine e wahelo tokolo. Sino ni kote ki pea pole pole maina. Te ula ki ta mana o puta pai e ula. Pea fisi ai anaua I e toke laua pula. O au ai whanga tapu tuke mauna ke tapuia. Sino ni kote ki pea pole pole maina. Te ula ki ta mana o puta pai e ula. Pea fisi ai anaua I e toke laua pula. O au ai whanga tapu tuke mauna ke tapuia. O ia ue ai maile o kutawa I e wā. Lupu e ingano o kumata laro ata. Te au moi fine lungi tarisi e lo mamana. Kalanga koe kua o kufe.
Malo tulus nita. Malo e kau mai.
Malu aku mai si I ata o e po. Ola pae manatu o kufane o e roto. Pea mate I e sio pau ki e kamitani e moto. Perfiu me o teine e wahelo tokolo. Sisi no ni kote ki pea pole pole maima. Te ula ki ta pana o puta pai e ula. Pea fisi ai anaua I e toke laua fula. O au ai whanga tapu tuke mauna ke tapuia. O au ai whanga tapu tuke mauna ke tapuia.
Io koe oi awe ai mai rena o te o ma esta teila mai le pia moe lolo mai le tawani he wha. Koe tau taimi he taimini hoi ki makainga koe fitu tolu fitu pe koe toe ai mini te ua tolu ki he walu, kone hoko pe ai walu, o mau tatau atu. Koe whemako atu ai ki ata koe ni, pa ki tala mai ange pe koe ha ai mea o ku whihala ki I he ata koe ni te honga atu koe ni. Ke mu tuku mai ange pe koe ha ai mea o ku whihala ki koe ata koe ni koe tā o Joe Biden pe mohono marina na aahi ki a Palestini malolo ko ia koe Jimmy Carter pe mohono mari. Ko whemau ke mo sio mange ki he ata koe ni pa mutala mai ko hae mea o ku something strange in that picture. O koe mea o ku whihalaki I he tā koe ni.
Cats for his dog Major to rip apart, and went down to Georgia, where he and the First Lady met up with their oldest and most adorable predecessors.
We want to show you this photo from the Carter Center. This was the visit of President Biden and
cats for his dog Major to rip apart, and went down to Georgia, where he and the First Lady met up with their oldest and most adorable predecessors.
we want to show you this photo from the Carter.
Koe ata e na hoi ki makainga. Ko Joe Biden, mo Jimmy Carter, ko hono Mariana, ko Dr. Biden. O ku tā mai pia mo Jimmy Carter. Pia ko Joe Biden o tolu tui mai I he tawhaaki hoa o Jimmy Carter. Ko hea mea o ke whakatoka ngai I he tā ko e ni. O ku weird, o ku kaike. O koe mea o whihalaki ai. Ko hoi tene lawa o whakahoko mai. Ko hei mea o ku whihalaki I he ata ko ena. Ko Joe Biden pia mo honomari Dr. Biden na aahi pena na ewa kia Jimmy Carter pia mo honomari. Whakatoka ngā iange atako ena pe ko hae mea o ku whihalaki.
Senator, this was the visit of President Biden and Dr. Jill Biden with Jimmy and Rosalind Carter in Georgia last week. The former president is 96.
Jimmy, Joe Biden nena pia moe Mario Jimmy Carter.
First Lady, 93, and Brianna, they're going to celebrate their 75th wedding anniversary in July.
That's amazing. 75 years. It's great to see this photo.
Okay, guys. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm really happy to see these people all together and smiling and everything. It's just, what the is going on?
Koe ata koe nā ho e mo kainga pate mo sio whakalele. Mo sio ki he saisi o Trump o Joe Biden. Pea mo e saisi o e mari o Jimmy Carter. Pea mo sio ki he saisi e mari o Joe Biden. Pea mo e saisi o Jimmy Carter. Mo pehe ko ha ata mo oni eni pe ko Jimmy Carter mo oni. Mo sio ki he saisi o Jimmy Carter. Mo pehe u leke reka pehe. Whakatatau ki he mari o Joe Biden. Pea pehe pe ki a Joe Biden. Hange ai maria o Jimmy Carter haki leka. Koe mea oku mahalo ia. Oku ikai ko Jimmy Carter ina ia. Pea mohono mari. Koe tamapua pe ena. Koe ikai ngatai ko Joe Biden. O koe kene tui mask. O koe kene tui eia ha mask. I he taimi ko e nao kei whewhekai ko ni koe ai tutu ni ko ia ki he mask. Kana e alu ia ki a Jimmy Carter. Kai ngata peo motua. Pea utotonu ke tui ai mask. Ko hinga ke oa e puke a Jimmy Carter. Kana kai ke tui mask ia. Pa kai ko ia pe ka musio ki he saisi. Whakatatau ai lahi o Joe Biden. Ki he mari o Jimmy Carter. Pea whakatatau ai lahi o Dr. Biden, if she's a doctor. Pea moe lahi o Jimmy Carter. O Jimmy Carter ko tangata lahi. Kau asi mai he nā uhange ko haki I leka whewhe. Au mahino mai pe, something is wrong with the picture. Ulua ki pe, ko ha mea koe ki nau tui mask ki ai. O kai whoke nau tui mask o hinga, it's not real. O kai ke tui mask a Joe Biden pea mo honomari. Ko ngahe ko futamapua. It's not real. Peka pau rewa ko mea mo oni ko ha mea ko ke na tui ai mask. Ko hinga ke malui a Jimmy Carter. It doesn't make sense. Something is wrong pea moe ata ko ena. Pea koe anga o e tui ai whahinga. Koe futamapua pe ia. Koe hao mō lau. Apang nau lohi aki pe ki tau tolu. Eke, hoi kuma kainga. Koe tau taimi he taimini. Koe toe a miniti e tahaono. Ki he walu. Pea tukumua ke te o atu ai.
The Secretary of State's office just released numbers that make it look like this Republican-backed recall is actually going to go.
Dr. Fauci, we don't know whether the pandemic started in a lab in Wuhan or evolved naturally.
Senator Paul.
Dr. Fauci, in a recent British study, David Wiley and others found that no symptomatic reinfections from COVID-19 after following 2,800 patients for several months. In fact, there have been no reports of significant numbers of reinfections after acquiring COVID-19 naturally. Shane Crotty, a virologist at La Jolla Institute for Immunology, concludes from his experiments that the amount of immune memory gained from natural infection would likely prevent the vast majority of people from getting hospitalized disease, severe disease for many years.
Immune caused by the virus infected. Fahinga puke I he coronavirus o guia immune pe koe antibody o ku nelawa o malui. I see no pe me he coronavirus pe koe COVID tahahiva.
In this study, which was published in Science, Dr. Crotty showed that antibody levels stayed relatively constant with only modest declines over 6 to 8 months. Dr. Crotty reported that, notably, memory B cells specific for the spike protein, or RBD, were detected in almost all COVID-19 cases with no apparent half-life at 5 to 8 months after infection. In other words, Dr. Crotty found significant evidence of long-term immunity after COVID infection. Furthermore, Dr. Crotty noted B-cell memory to some other infections has been observed for as long as 60-plus years after smallpox vaccination, or even 90 years after a natural infection with influenza. That was a woman who got the Spanish flu, still showed immunity 90 years later. So rather than being pessimistic towards people gaining immunity after they've had COVID or had a vaccine, studies argue for significant optimism. In fact, there have been no scientific studies arguing or proving that infection with COVID does not create immunity.
Ko ia koe whakamatala pēr a Rand Paul whekau aki pēr moe kinau tolu puke ko ia I he COVID tahiwa o ku ia immunity I he sino pe ko antibodies o ku minihanga malu I sino pe mi he puke ko ia he COVID tahiwa. Koe debate
thank you, gentleman, for yielding back. The chair now recognizes Mr. Jordan.
Thank you, Mr.
5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Fauci, American citizens, some of who've lost their businesses because of lockdowns imposed due to the virus, and who've been told for a year they can't go to church, can't go to work, can't go to school, can't go to a loved one's funeral, can't go to their United States Capitol to petition their government, and if they dare speak anything that's contrary to what you've said or CDC has said, they get censored, as evidenced by the governor from our third largest state just last week facing that situation. All the while, as the ranking member, Mr. Scalise has pointed out, migrants enter the country illegally from 60 different countries. They're processed, put on a plane, paid for by the American taxpayers without getting tested, flown somewhere or bused somewhere in the country. It just doesn't hardly seem fair. And so I'll go back to the question I asked the first round. Can you give us a specific measurement that will have to be attained, some outcome, some result that we have to reach, so that Americans know they're going to get their liberties back and be able to move on with their lives?
You're asking for a number. If I have a number, it would have to be my best estimate, and that would be that the number of infections per day are well below 10,000 per day. At that point, and up to that point, there would be a gradual pulling back of some of the restrictions you're talking about, particularly when people are vaccinated more and more, because it's a combination of, if you're vaccinated, you're protecting yourself for sure, and the more people that get vaccinated in the community, the lower the level of infection will be.
I understand. Well, give us an idea. I mean, look, you've given us thoughts on all kinds of subjects. You've opined on all kinds of issues. Give us your best guess then.
I just did.
No, you didn't. You didn't give us a time. When do you think this is going? Are we going to be here 2 years from now wearing masks?
No, I doubt.
Asking Dr. Fauci the same question.
Well, let me end. You're ranting again. Let me
No, I'm not ranting.
Yes, you are.
No, here's how it works, Dr. Fauci. I get to ask you the questions. You're the highest paid official in the United States government. You've given us your advice on baseball, on dating apps, on cruise ships. You told us 0 masks, 1 mask, 2 masks, now back to 1 mask. I'm just asking you, when is it going to end? You can say I'm ranting. I'm actually asking the question that the citizens I get the privilege of representing, and my name actually goes on a ballot. I don't think your name's ever been on a ballot. My name goes on a ballot. The citizens I represent want to know the answer to when they can get their liberties back.
You know,
You can call that ranting. I actually call it standing up for the Constitution, which I take an oath to uphold, Dr. Fauci, every year, every term that I serve in this Congress representing the folks in the 4th District of Ohio. So it is not ranting. It is defending the First Amendment.
Badgering.
And we'd like an answer, or your best guess, since
Yeah.
you got an answer for everything else.
Well, when we get the people in this country vaccinated, the overwhelming majority of the people in the country, and we project that will very likely be sometime in the beginning to mid of the summer. Because as the president has said, when we get to the end of May, there will be enough vaccinations to vaccinate everybody in the country. It will, the reason I can't give you a precise number, because I'm not 100% sure how many people will want to be vaccinated. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. If you get the overwhelming number of people in
You gave us a guess on Texas. Look at the chart here. This is 7-day average of case rate per 100,000 people. You gave us your guess on Texas. You said when Texas ended their lockdown, ended their mandate, that this was, quote, inexplicable and would lead to a surge in cases. Texas is near the bottom of the 50 states. But all the states at the top are lockdown states. So how great was that? That guess didn't seem to be too good.
Here ko Jim Jordan ia mo Dr. Fauci. Jim Jordan ko e tahaya ko Congress Republic. Pea ko Jim Jordan o ku kauia I he kautangata o ku nau teke mālohi ke whakapapau ai aho e to'o ai mask. Pea mana I kai Jim Jordan ba mo e McCarthy, makautama pia me he Republica nau teke ke whai mo to'o ai mask. Aki nau tolu ko nau osi vaccinate. O kai lopo ka haho no whaingataa ke pehe e Dr. Fauci. Ko ki nau tolu ko nau osi vaccinate. Osi pe ai wike ua a tā koe ke to'o ho mask. Pia mahino rewa ki he taha kotoa ko o vaccinate pe ba kai ngata ai e toi whakaloto lahi ki e te ki nau tolu te ke nau vaccinate. Ke nau o huhu e koe ko o vaccinate pe, osi pe fully vaccinate pe, osi pe wike ua. To'o rewa ho mask o. Koe mea koe na whenga ki ai a Jim Jordan. Ka e kei lokai pe kakai, ka ua ko mahino mai kakai o kai ke nau vaccinate. E pōpula rewa kakai a koni koe ko nau osi o huhu vaccine. Ia ki te nau tolu o nau tau a mio holo. Aina tonu ia ke whakapare ia ki nau tolu o nau huhu vaccine. Tarange, mo tolu koe o mohu vaccine, fully vaccinated. Koe osi pe a wike ua, ngā oi a vaccine, you can take off your mask. Simple. Very simple. Ka pau nai pehe, ko osi koto Amerikania he o huhu. O ngā nau, he komia koni koe o ku itai koni koe kakai o whonuani. Ko hono loka pehe ki nau tolu hange ko hakau reka. Lockdown, sit down, put your mask, put your mask. O hau pe ke whainga ni hi whakailo ki nau tolu. Hau e kau porisio, arrest. Ka pau nai whakakaukau ai Dr. Fauci, ke whakai ai kakai ke nau vaccinate. Kone talange ko koe pe o ku ke fully vaccinate. Osi pe wike ua, you can take off your mask. He was talma he CDC, mo kau saya nisi. Ko vaccinated pe, o koe tiki te puke pa o koe tiki te whamafola. Ai koe na o ku I he vitio ko e ni o koe ai ko ngai o ku na agi wai. Talange Jim Jordan. Harewa aonga o vaccinate. Harewa aonga hono huhu vaccine ki nau tolu. Ka pau osiange ia nau kei pōpula ta tau pe mo ki nau tolu tiki ki nau huhu. Ka pau nai hanga Dr. Fauci o talange Motolu mo si huhu vaccine, o si peu ke ua, atagi motolu, toho mo mask. Hiena peherewa sio koe kakai o ku te na hu vaccine, te nau lele rewa he vavetaha, ke whi na hu vaccine, kai toho nau pōpula. Koe anga peu ki whakaukau, kake, koe tau tai miho i ki makainga. Ko tata alo mai. Pau atua e ofalahi ke te motolu hono kotoa pe. O tau kau whakataha i he fiafi ko eni. Whakatawangi pe ke tau mao hae fiafi whakakoloa. He fiafi o ko whonu i he tāpuaki pia moe keresi ai eiki. Hai fiafi o ko mauaha mālolo pia whakafo oa e ngahi mau angaivi. Kore whamure mare ati ko pana ia tō whohena e kai ke whiunga pia moho me aho eiki, kore ke hufanga pe i he tulu mafua kau whakalawa. Ka atua e ofa ki te mo tolu hono kotoa pe, pia me i he whare o e tui ha mohe ofu. A pe he ki he pare mia pia mo e hau eiki o whanua mo e kau minista. Mo tolu si kau tau koula, pia mo tolu he mohe ngai mamahi. Ofa lahi ati te mo tolu. Tau lotua, ai ka hau e whanuan. Malo.